හරිම සුදුයි.
Tonight on First at 9. This Monday, the 4th of December 2023. Tourism spike. November tops off the highest month of inbound tourists as Sri Lanka's tourism industry sees a powerful resurgence after a debilitating 2022. Cyclone alert. Mwang wreaks havoc in India as Chennai closes down to devastating floods. Adverse fallout effects also experienced in Sri Lanka with heavy rains, landslide warnings and poor light. Sports upheaval. Minister Harin Fernando appoints a new sports council. Arjuna Ranatunga replaced as chairman. Syllabus upgrade. MPs discuss the need for a more holistic education experience, including the need for sex education.
Focus on comprehensive sexuality education, and this is something that we've been arguing about for many years, but unfortunately we've actually never seen the light of it.
Now, unfortunately, in our system, this counselling that we have in schools, these counsellors are not trained.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දිනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9 with Mwang. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
And a very warm welcome. You're joining us on your prime time English newscast. I'll take you straight to your top story making headlines tonight. Tropical cyclone Mwang wreaked havoc in Chennai with near absolute destruction as heavy rains and winds brought the city to a standstill. With the paralyzing effects of the storm suffocating large parts of India, Sri Lanka too has begun facing its ill effects as Mwang berthed 395 kilometers northeast of Jaffna early this morning. This resulted in heavy rains in certain parts of the country, with roads being submerged as far south as Galle district. Red alert landslide warnings being issued and poor daylight conditions that hampered citizens. Issuing an amber advisory, the Department of Meteorology forecast heavy rains above 100 millimeters to 6 provinces during the day tomorrow.
Cyclonic storm Mwang over the southwest Bay of Bengal berthed about 395 kilometers northeast of Jaffna this morning. Per the Department of Meteorology, the cyclonic storm is expected to further intensify and move northwestward away from Sri Lanka towards the North Tamil Nadu coast of India across the south of the Andhra Pradesh coast tomorrow. The cyclone has resulted in tragic circumstances akin to the 2015 floods that overtook India, with entire roads and cities underwater. Measures have since been taken to temporarily close down the Chennai airport as authorities battle with the debilitating effects of the cyclone. Meanwhile, several parts of Sri Lanka were also affected as a fallout from the cyclone. The northern part of the country has been severely affected, with rough seas also observed in the area, while red alerts for strong winds and rough seas issued by the Meteorological Department advise the naval and fishing communities to not venture into open seas over the next 24 hours. Further, the country today experienced low light conditions in several areas, while fairly heavy rains were experienced in parts of the island this morning. As a result, motorists travelling on the expressways have been advised to keep both front and rear lights switched on until they reach their destinations. Issuing an amber advisory, the Meteorological Department forecasted heavy rains for 6 provinces. Accordingly, the amber advisory for heavy rains of 100 millimeters were issued for the western, central, Sabaragamuwa, southern, northern and northwestern provinces. It further stated that several showers can also be expected tonight in parts of the country. The general public have been further advised to take adequate precautions to minimize the damage caused by strong winds and thunder showers.
ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ ඉදිරි දින කිහිපයේ කාලගුණ තත්ත්වය මේ සුළුකුණාටු පද්ධතියේ ගමන් මාර්ගයත් සමග තමයි තීරණය වන්නේ. මොකද මේ පද්ධතිය දෙස රැදී යන සුළම් ප්‍රවාහය දිවෙන හරහා පවතිනවා. මේ නිසා විශේෂයෙන් හෙට දිනේදීත් අපි ගත්තොත් විශේෂයෙන් බස්නාහිර සබරගමුව මධ්‍යම සහ දකුණු පළාත්වල දවස පුරා වගේ කඩින් කඩ වැසි ඇතිවීමේ හැකියාව බොහෝ දුරට බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්න පුළුවන්.
Concurrently, several roads in the Galle district were reportedly submerged due to the incessant rains. In related news, a section of the Norton Bridge Muskelia Main Road had collapsed near the Kiravan Elia Patana area this morning. Subsequently, the National Building Research Organisation has issued Level 3 landslide warnings and a red alert evacuation notice to residents in Pasbage Korala of the Kandy district and Alapatha in the Ratnapura district.
In the budget debate held today, where allocations for the welfare of women and children were debated, Minister of Water Supply Jeevan Thondaman voiced that the country must adopt comprehensive sex education for children and young people in order to prevent the growing number of cases related to sexual abuse in Sri Lanka. Minister Thondaman pointed out that sexual education plays a pivotal role in preparing young people for a world where sexually transmitted infections, unintended pregnancies and sexual and gender-based violence still pose a risk to their well-being. Meanwhile, all Ceylon Tamil Congress MP Gajendra Kumar Pondambalam, highlighting the need of counselling in the education system, said that the counsellors that are being appointed to schools are untrained professionals.
We must address the biggest elephant in this room, especially in Sri Lanka, which is the abortion rights. What is important at this particular point of time is education and sexual education. In relation to sexual education, we must focus on comprehensive sexuality education. And this is something that we've been arguing about for many years, but unfortunately we've actually never seen the light of it. And only through CSE in schools, children and young people will develop accurate and age-appropriate knowledge, attitudes and skills, positive values such as respect for human rights, gender equality, diversity and attitudes and skills that contribute to a safe, healthy and positive relationship. CSE plays a pivotal role in the preparation of young people for a safe, productive, fulfilling life in a world where, say, HIV, AIDS, sexually transmitted infections, unintended pregnancies and sexual and gender-based violence still pose a risk to their well-being. CSE basically empowers children to take control and make informed decisions about their sexuality and relationships freely and responsibly. And also, we must acknowledge the gender-based violence that takes place in this country. I must say on violence against women, especially by their male partners, I must say that male partners, male intimate partners are the biggest killers of women in Sri Lanka. And this is not my opinion. It is the opinion or a study done by the UNFPA and the University of Kelaniya in 2021. 62% of homicides of Sri Lankan women are committed by their intimate partner, ex-partner or a family member. And more than 50% of murders of Sri Lankan women are committed by their husbands. 84% of Sri Lankan women killed were attacked in their own home by somebody they know or they are familiar with. Only 5% of cases concerning women murdered between 2013 to 2017 were ever concluded in court. Every 2 hours, a child is sexually molested in this country. People may not admit it, people may not want to hear it, people may not want to say it, but that is a fact and that must be accepted. 1,721 is the number of children below the age of 16 who were raped, and this was reported in 2021. There are unreported cases too, my fellow members. Excuse me, I'm speaking for majority of the population in this country. I think I can take some more time. I'm not speaking about politics and wasting time like half the members who spoke before me. 23% of the schools that have child protection committees, only 23% of our total school strength have child protection committees. This needs to be increased. Awareness needs to be created. Every 90 minutes, a woman is raped in Sri Lanka. These are not official statistics, but outcomes from surveys. Most women who are raped do not report it, but we cannot use that as an excuse and say that women are not being raped. Apart from that, in a 2013 UN survey on male sexual violence in Sri Lanka, I am sorry to say 15% of Sri Lankan men admitted to having raped a woman at least once, and 1 in 10 men admitted to raping more than once. The criminalization of abortion is a major example for this. And with that being said, I would like to say, according to a 2016 estimate by the Sri Lankan Health Ministry, 658 approximate abortions take place in this country. That's close to nearly 250,000 abortions a year. And And that's 250,000 women, Sri Lankan women, whose lives you're endangering and who is at risk. And I would also like to say impact on maternal health. Research from 2015 indicates that unsafe abortions are the third most cause of perinatal death in Sri Lanka, accounting for 10 to 13% of maternal fatalities. This highlights a serious health risk. Reality is, in a 1997 survey done, more than 90% of the women who wish to have abortions are married women, either because of poverty or because of foreign employment or because of other factors.
Now, our schooling structure has cadres for counselling. Now, if you take the Northeast, this counselling is a crucial part because we have a drug problem and it's rampant, and counselling is crucial. Now, unfortunately, in our system, this counselling that we have in schools, these counsellors are not trained.
අද උදේ ජාතික ජනබලවේගයේ කාන්තාවන් පාර්ලිමේන්තු වටරවුම ඉදිරිපිට උද්ඝෝෂණයක යෙදෙනකොට අද අපිට අදාළ වැය ශීර්ෂය කතා කරන දිනයේ තුල විශේෂයෙන්ම කාන්තා හා ළමා අමාත්‍යාංශයේ වැය ශීර්ෂය 51කින් පමණ අඩු කරලා තියෙන වෙලාවක මේ රටේ ගැහැණුන් විශාල පීඩාවකට ලක් වෙලා ඉන්න මොහොතක මේ ආණ්ඩුව එක්ක අපිට ප්‍රතිසංස්කරණවාදී සාකච්ඡා නැහැ. පනත් ගෙනැල්ලා මෙතන කාන්තාවන් වෙනුවෙන් ඉදිරිපත් කරන පනත් කොමිසන් සභා අරවද මේවද අදාළ නැහැ. මොකෝ ඔවුන්ගේ ඇත්ත අද හෙළිදරව් වුණා.
මොකටද කෝප් එකක් තියෙන්නේ? බොරුවට රංගනයකට නීති වෙනස් වෙන්නේ නැතුව මේ රට ගොඩ ගන්න වැඩපිළිවෙල ආරම්භ කරන්න බෑ පැහැදිලිව. ඒ වගේම හරෙන් ෆර්නෑන්ඩෝ මැතිතුමා නව ක්‍රීඩා අමාත්‍යවරයා විදියට මම ඔහුට සුබ පතනවා. මම හිතනවා කවුරුවත් ඇඟිලි ගහන එක නැති වෙයි ඔහුට කියලා. ඔහුට කොන්ද කෙලින් තියන් වැඩ කරන්න හැකි වෙයි කියලා මම ප්‍රාර්ථනා කරමි.
මම දැක්ක මේ සභාව නියෝජනය කරන සමහරු හොඳටම මට දෝෂාරෝපණය කරනවා ක්‍රිකට් ගැන කතා කරනවා වැඩි කියලා. ඉතින් ක්‍රිකට් ගැන කතා කරන්න අපිට අයිතියක් නැද්ද? ක්‍රිකට් ක්‍රීඩකයෙක් හැටියට මමත් බොහොම ආසයි ක්‍රිකට් ක්‍රීඩාවට. ක්‍රිකට් ක්‍රීඩාවේ නිරත වෙලා සිටිලා තිබෙනවා. ඉතින් ක්‍රිකට් වලට අපි කැමතියි. දැන් මොනවද ඔය වාර්තාවල තියෙන්නේ? දූෂණ, වංචා. එතකොට ඒව ගැන කතා කරන එක කාලය කාදැමීමක්ද? මෙහෙමයි ඉතින් දූෂණ ක්‍රියාවලියන් වල කප් ගහපු කට්ටියට ක්‍රිකට් දූෂණය ගැන කතා කිරීම නරක වෙන්න පුළුවන්. අපේ ජනාධිපතිතුමා ප්‍රචලිත වෙලා හිටියා මිස්ටර් ක්ලීන් කියලා. දැන් මිස්ටර් ක්ලීන් ජනාධිපතිවරයාට පුළුවන් ෆොරෙන්සික් ඔඩිට් එකක් කරන්න ශ්‍රී ලංකා ක්‍රිකට් එකේ.
Well, State Minister of Finance Shehan Semasinghe states that the payments for Aswasuma for the month of October have been transferred to banks for their disbursement and will be credited to beneficiary accounts from tomorrow onwards. In a next message, the minister added that the payments owed to 1,406,932 beneficiary families amounting to 8,775 million rupees were approved for disbursement. Additionally, he also stated that once the review of appeals and objections are complete, eligible individuals will receive their relevant benefits retrospectively from July of 2024. Also in your headline making news tonight, Sports Minister Harin Fernando has appointed a new 15-member National Sports Council with Dr. Maya Gunasekara as its chairman. The new appointment replaces the former chairman Arjuna Ranatunga, who was the most recent appointed head of the Cricket Interim Committee under former Sports Minister Roshan Ranasinghe. Issuing a statement, the Ministry of Sports said I.U. Vikramasuriya has been appointed as Secretary of the Council. Other members of the Council include former athlete Shriyani Kulavansa, Major General Rajitha Ampemohotti, Professor Arjuna De Silva, Panduka Kirthinandan, Anna Punchiheva, Malik Kader, Dr. S.V.D. Nanakara, Hafiz Marzo, former Sri Lanka cricketer Siddharth Vettimuni, General Jagat Jayasuriya, Professor Shemal Fernando, and former cricket commentator Kamal Deshapriya. In another appointment, Minister Fernando has appointed General Shavendra Silva as the chairman of the National Sports Council Selection Committee, while Arjuna Silva has been appointed as its secretary. Other members of the committee are Dr. Maya Gunasekara, Suresh Subramaniam, and Nalinda Sampath Ilangakon. A protest was organised today by the women's wing of the National People's Power Party, demanding solutions to several issues, including the increase of prices of goods. The protest was launched this morning near Parliament roundabout. The women's wing of NPP protested their objection to high costs of living as well as inconveniences incurred due to tax reforms. Later on, police fired water cannons to disperse the demonstrators who were attempting to march towards Parliament. Parliamentarian of the SLPP, Gamini Lokuge, highlighted that despite the availability of essentials such as fuel and gas, increased prices are still posing issues to the public. He went on to say that his party is taking every effort to explore solutions for this matter. Meanwhile, the Justice Minister, in a statement to provide more clarity, says that the country would have to face the economic problems it is currently facing if resources which were destroyed during the war and by the JVP were still available. With that, let's take a look at some views expressed by political party members today.
ආර්ථිකය කඩාවැටුනම අපිට තෙල් ටික ගන්න සල්ලි තිබුණේ නැහැ. ගෑස් ටික ගන්න සල්ලි තිබුණේ නැහැ. දැන් කොහොම හරි ඒ ටික අඩුවක් නැතුව හම්බ වෙනවට උන් මිල ටිකක් වැඩි. ඒක ගොඩ ගන්න තමයි අපි මේ මාංචු වෙන්නේ.
හැමෝම කියන්නේ රට ස්ථාවර වෙලා තියෙනවා. ගෑස් පෝලින් නැහැ, පෙට්‍රෝල් පෝලින් නැහැ, ඩීසල් පෝලින් නැහැ. ඒක ඇත්ත. දා පෝලින් නැති තිබිච්ච අවස්ථාවේදී හතර දිනකගේ පවුලකට ජීවත් වෙන්න ගියේ රුපියල් 90000යි. අද පෝලින් නැති අවස්ථාවේ හතර දිනකගේ පවුලකට ජීවත් වෙන්න 1,70,000යි.
දැන් නඩු තීන්දුවක් ආවේ ආර්ථික වැට්ටුව සාමිකව ජනාධිපති ගෝඨාභය හිටපු ජනාධිපති මහින්ද මුදල් ඇමති බැසිල් රාජපක්ෂ මහ භාණ්ඩාගාර අධිපති අජිත් කුමාර් කබ්‍රාල් මුදල් අමාත්‍යාංශ ලේකම් ආටිගල ජනාධිපති ලේකම් පී.බී. ජයසුන්දර ඔක්කොම එකතු වෙලා සාමික ක්‍රියාකාරීත්වය මොකක්ද රට වටන්න
ආර්ථිකය ගැන පෞගේ දවස්වල තුන නඩු තීන්දුවත් හැබැයි අපේ ආර්ථිකය කඩාවැටීමට බලපාපු කාරණා ඔක්කොම එතන නැහැ. අවුරුදු 30ක් තිස්සේ ප්‍රභාකරන්ගේ ත්‍රස්තවාදයෙන් විනාශ කරපු ආර්ථිකය අපේ ජනතා විමුක්ති පෙරමුණෙන් ට්‍රාන්ස්ෆෝමර් 1000කට වැඩිය පුපුරවපුවා. ලංගම බස් 400ක් ගිනි තියපුවා. ඒව තිබුණා නම් සමහරට මේ ආර්ථික ප්‍රශ්න ඇති නොවෙන්න ඉඩ තිබුණා.
Well, the matron of a juvenile detention centre in Colombo has been further remanded till the 15th of December over a death of a 14-year-old recently. She is currently being charged with assault that led to the untimely demise of the youth. With that, let's take a look at other local news making news across the island in brief.
The matron of a juvenile detention centre in Kalmunai, who was arrested over the death of a 14-year-old detainee at the centre recently, has been remanded till the 15th of December after being produced before the Kalmunai Magistrates Court yesterday. Police reports further confirmed that the death of the child was caused by assault and revealed that the matron of the detention centre had recently beaten the child. Further investigations into the matter are underway by the Kalmunai police. Meanwhile, in the Vellava police jurisdiction last evening, a 38-year-old individual was found murdered at his residence. Preliminary investigations revealed that the deceased was murdered by his wife following a personal dispute. Accordingly, the 36-year-old suspect was arrested by the police, while their two children were also taken into police custody. In other news, the remains of a body was found near the Pallekumbara bridge in the Diathalava area this morning. The deceased was identified as a 40-year-old resident of Diathalava. Post-mortem examinations are yet to be carried out at the Diathalava base hospital, while police investigations into the matter are currently underway.
Welcome back to the news. Sri Lanka has welcomed a total of 1,276,951 tourists as of November 2023. According to statistics of the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority, the highest number of tourist arrivals were reported during the month of November, amounting to a total of 151,496 visitors to the island.
Sri Lanka's tourism has been exponentially increasing since the beginning of the year after deplorable numbers 2022 put up. The island recorded a total of 1,276,951 tourist arrivals as of end November. A total of 151,496 tourist visits were recorded for the month of November alone, which was twice the number of arrivals recorded in November of 2022. According to the data collated by the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority, the highest number of tourist arrivals for 2023 were recorded from the month of November. 109,199 arrivals were recorded in October this year, which also shows a significant increase from October 2022, where tourist arrivals stood at 42,026. Per statistics issued by the Tourism Development Authority, tourist arrivals peaked during the fourth week of November. The countries with the most number of tourist arrivals were reported from India, Russia and Germany. India has tallied 30,339 tourist arrivals from the total number of arrivals recorded so far. A significant number of tourist arrivals were also recorded from the United Kingdom, Australia and China.
Also in business news, Sri Lanka's Export Development Board confirmed that earnings from merchandise exports fell by 13.13% in October compared to September this year. The Export Development Board also observed a decline of 14.6% from a year earlier. Per provisional data released, merchandise export earnings in October this year had recorded a total of $898 million. The decline in merchandise exports is due to the reduced demand shown in export products, especially in apparel and textiles, rubber and rubber-based products, and coconut-based products. For the period January to October this year, overall merchandise exports decreased by 10.54% to $9.8 billion compared to the corresponding period in year 2022. Further, the EDB mentioned that out of the top 10 export markets, Italy, the UAE and France have shown strong performances during this period. Exports to the USA, Sri Lanka's single largest export destination, decreased by 13.84% to $206.77 million in October from a year earlier, and 19.18% to $2,281.57 million for the period from January to October compared to the same period in 2022. And in our next segment, understanding taxes in Sri Lanka, economic experts say that the government should focus on including high-income earners into the tax net and increase import taxes on luxury goods without increasing indirect taxes such as value-added tax, which burdens the majority of low-income earners. We have Professor Vasantha Attukorla who joins us on the segment tonight.
When they are designing the tax, they are probably considering only the revenue objective. But if you look at the income tax, it has increased a little bit. Present contribution is like 28%. And also good and services tax, its contribution is like 58% out of total. If you increase the indirect tax in a particular economy, that means even poor people have to pay the tax. Probably it will increase the income distribution in a particular economy. Now, Sri Lanka needs to take into account these factors when we are designing a tax system to our country. But policymakers, unfortunately, they are not considering those things. At the moment, we know that government needs revenue. Government expenditure is very high and income is very low. As a result, there is a big gap between revenue and the expenditure. This led to increase the borrowing. Increase in borrowing means at the end of the day, the unsustainability of the financial system will increase. It will lead to the unsustainability of the entire economy. Out of total expenditure, a significant amount has to be allocated to pay the interest. Interest bill is very high in the economy. Therefore, government has to cut down or decrease the other expenses. Say, for example, expenditure on education, expenditure on health system, and expenditure on infrastructure development. Rather than increasing tax rate, there are so many other aspects that we need to think about in order to increase the government revenue. Government can include more and more people into the system, right? This inclusion is very important. At the moment, there are so many people who can pay the tax, but they are not paying it. This inclusion is extremely important. You can increase the inclusion while decreasing the tax rate. That is another aspect that government needs to think. At the same time, this imports duties has decreased rapidly over the last few years because we are importing more and more commodities to Sri Lanka. In order to control these things, you can increase at the imports duties at least for the luxury goods.
And at the Colombo Stock Exchange, the bourse closed in green and aided by gains in financial and consumer staple stocks. The ASPI, the benchmark index, climbed 0.22% to settle at 10,743.59, rising for a fourth straight session. LOLC Holdings and the Distilleries Company of Sri Lanka were the top gainers on the index, rising 3.34% and 3.33% respectively. Trading volume on the ASPI fell to 21.9 million shares from 33.7 in the previous session. The S&P SL20 index, meanwhile, climbed 0.68% to close at 3,067.3. Equity market turnover fell to 708 million rupees from 962 in the last session. The banking sector was the top contributor today, while the food, beverage and tobacco sector was the second highest contributor. Foreign investors were net sellers, offloading stocks worth 89.4 million, while domestic investors were net buyers, purchasing shares worth 671.6 million rupees. And here's a look at markets in view with Sajani Devapura from Capital Alliance.
Moving on to the Treasury bill and bond auctions, the weighted average yield was 14.48% for 2027 bond and 14.52% for the 2028 bond. The weighted average yields for the 3 months, 6 months and 9 months Treasury bills were 14.86%, 14.52% and 12.89% respectively, showing a fall in the interest rates across the board, especially for the 3 months bill falling by 43 basis points. Furthermore, at this week's Treasury bill auction, the government aims to raise 185 billion rupees, with rates expected to reduce further. Global markets witnessed oil prices plunging over 2% on Friday amidst investor doubt surrounding the extent of OPEC supply reductions and sluggish global manufacturing activity, while gold surged to a record high amidst speculations favoring the initiation of Fed rate cuts in March.
Global sovereign credit conditions are neutral as we enter 2024, as moderately weaker global economic growth and persistent strains on fiscal positions are balanced by improvements in inflation dynamics and forecast reductions in most central bank policy rates, according to Fitch Ratings. In its global sovereigns outlook for 2024 forecast, Fitch says that both emerging and developed market sovereigns will experience higher costs of funding, with interest payments typically absorbing a rising share of revenues. Another difficulty here has been predicted for lower-rated emerging markets to try to access international capital markets, meaning they could be required to adjust funding needs lower or seek alternative sources of funding, with 13% of sovereigns rated CCC plus or lower. Additional defaults remain at a large possibility in 2024. Here's a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against other major currencies during the day. Well, in our corporate news segment tonight, USAID, together with the Public Utilities Commission in Sri Lanka, launched the Electricity Dispatch Database and Dashboard, which is aimed at fostering transparency and accountability within Sri Lanka's energy sector. Data such as electricity generation, forecasts, cost reservoir, details and emissions will provide accountability and insights into the energy sector's intricate operational dynamics. Here's a look at other corporate news in brief.
The United States Agency for International Development, in collaboration with the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka, launched the Electricity Dispatch Database and Dashboard, an online platform to enhance transparency in the management of Sri Lanka's power distribution through a visualization platform. The Dispatch Data Dashboard is a comprehensive tool that allows stakeholders to access and visualize data relevant to electricity generation, forecasts, costs, reservoir details and emissions, providing insights into the energy sector's intricate operational dynamics. The initiative will help foster transparency and accountability within Sri Lanka's energy sector. Concurrently, USAID's U-Lead project sponsored an innovative social media drama series focusing on career guidance and skills development for Sri Lankan youth, which secured top awards in the Sri Lanka division of a global marketing effectiveness competition. FE Sri Lanka, a branch of FE Worldwide, recognized the 10-part series Utter Pass, presented on Facebook, YouTube and TikTok social media platforms in October of 2022 at a ceremony held recently in Colombo. Sri Lankan Airlines have introduced double daily flights between Colombo and Mumbai, increasing the convenience of passengers travelling to and from India's financial and entertainment capital. The new service to Mumbai will not only provide a 50% boost to Sri Lankans' capacity on its Mumbai route, but will also strengthen the airline's already vast network in India. In other news, the Colombo Stock Exchange conducted an issuer forum titled A New Approach for the Future of Your Business in association with the US Agency for International Development in Kandy recently. The objective of the forum was to provide an insight for small and medium enterprises to discover capital raising opportunities available at the CSE via listing on the Empower and Dirisavi boards of the exchange.
And that's it from us tonight. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow at the same time. Good night.